From the time of St. Peter, the first pope of the Catholic Church, to current day and Pope Benedict XVI, every leader from the Vatican is represented here, a display of rare art and objects directly from the Holy City.
These are primarily originals. There's a couple reproductions for objects that were too fragile to travel, but it is primarily originals. We did create a couple environments to provide a context for the exhibition. Behind us is the Sistine Chapel. So about 100 years after Peter's death,
Jeffrey Scott Wyatt is the producer of the exhibition, named St. Peter and the Vatican, the Legacy of the Popes. It includes some of the most holy works of art in the world, like the Mandolin of Christ.
It's the earliest image of Christ that exists in Rome today. Image from the 3rd century, has legends of miraculous healings and things like that are associated with it. But that, object itself, it's like looking in the face of the Creator.
From these paintings of the first popes, 6 of only 15 in the world, to the robes and staffs used by those religious leaders, all here under one roof. Rooms full of treasures, both religious and historic. Some priceless pieces that you may not even see, even if you went all the way to Vatican City.
They come from the Pope's personal sacristy, where the chalices and vestments come from. Many objects come from there. Some of these you will be seeing at the Vatican museums. Other objects come from the Propaganda Fide, which is the university in Rome.
As you might imagine, this exhibit was a huge undertaking, right out of the mind of Pope John Paul II, who before his death wanted to show all of this to the world. It may be the legacy of the popes, but many believe it may go down as the legacy of one pope, beloved by so many and willing to expose a world that in the past only few had the chance to explore. With religious music playing in the background and some of the most famous works of art in the world all around you, many describe this exhibit, appropriately named St. Peter and the Vatican, as both a religious and historic experience, a true legacy of the popes.
It's more than awesome. It's really just, it gets you very deeply.
Some Roman Catholics describe the treasures as spiritual.
I think just the fact that we've recently elected a new pope and seeing Pope John Paul, it's really emotional. That meant the most to me.
Even non-Catholics say this is a worldly adventure, and not only because of the religious factor, but all the history involved in this amazing display.
I think it gives a real simple history, some that non-Catholics like myself can kind of follow and look at.
These are actually built based on the architectural drawings from the archaeological dig of St. Peter's tomb.
Everyone has their favorites here, including exhibit producer Jeffrey Scott Wyatt.
It's just objects that were found in the tomb of St. Peter as part of the archaeological dig or throughout history. So, just some things like gold glass medallion, votive plaques, little pins. I mean, it's amazing, that these things are so old. The Mandolin of Christ, it's the earliest image of Christ that exists in Rome today. Image from the 3rd century, has legends of miraculous healings, and we have a large painting over 12 feet tall, an angel that by Boboli that was they call it a cartoon for not like we know cartoons, but is a test image that they did for one of the domes in St. Peter's Basilica. So it's a full-scale, angel that's over 12 feet tall.
Other pieces include this rare mug laced in jewels. It dates back to the 4th century and is the chalice used by Pope Benedict in his first Mass as pontiff. There's also a modern smoke generator used by the Vatican to signal the election of the new pope.
This was the one that announced the election of Pope Benedict to the world. When it's out of the case, you can actually still smell the smoke. But up close, you can see the burn marks.
Even the hammer used to tap the pope to make sure he's passed away and then smash his holy ring.
You can still see where the rings have been broken.
Important art and artifacts that couldn't be transported because of size or because they were fragile were reproduced. The exhibit features a recreation of perhaps the most famous work of art in the world, the roof of the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. And while the history of popes, past and present, are represented here, it's one beloved pope who made this all possible. Pope John Paul II wanted to show all this to the world.
He talked about pulling back the veil behind, the Catholic Church and opening up to the world more about the Catholic Church, both for Catholics and non-Catholics. So this exhibition, which was one of his wishes and one of his legacies, gives you a behind-the-scenes look at the Vatican.
So even though much of this art dates back hundreds of years, it's the legacy left behind by one pope which touches people most. Perhaps that's why the last thing you see and feel is a bronze cast of one of John Paul II's hands. As St. Peter and the Vatican, the legacy of the popes lives on.